year ago, I was on the other side of the world covering the America's Cup. Among the many comments and calls I received whilst I was down there, a familiar one was how people were following an event on the other side of the world in a time zone that was pretty much opposite to their own. As it turned out, lockdown and working from home made it a bit easier to watch the racing live during the night and go to work in your pyjamas. Having just worked on the latest leg of SailGP for the Sydney event, I've had a taste of that, juggling night shifts of action with the day job of producing features. And it was well worth it. Aside from the level of racing that it is increasing at every event, Sydney was the penultimate event in the second season of SailGP. The finishing tape and the $1 million prize was coming into view. And while the racing always matters at this level, there was no question that the pressure was piling on. So here's a review show of the Sydney event. Plus you can see the full racing highlights using the links above.
What a reckless animal! 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Keep going. Come on! Coming up, boys. Come on.
I love this show.
"2021 had been brutal. No one had escaped. But after 6 events, the big guns were already starting to focus on a spot in the grand final, and time was running out. To get there, Sydney Harbour, an iconic venue. National pride was at stake. Could Australia's homegrown Tom Slingsby take back the Sydney crown? After Ainsley's 2020 whitewash, a rematch was in store. Going into the Sydney event, it was clear to see why the pressure was building. 4 teams were already fighting for a spot in San Francisco next March. Australia were at the top, but USA and Japan were tied, just 1 point behind. Lurking in 4th, Great Britain was just 4 points behind the leaders. Then a gap to New Zealand with 36 points, ahead of Spain with 35, Denmark with 33, and France on 31. As spectators arrived, they had every expectation of seeing more in a season that had already delivered plenty of drama on the road to the $1 million race at the season finale in San Francisco. So how had 4 teams got to the top? The huge crowds in Cadiz were treated to a thriller when the fleet frontrunners went head-to-head in the final and charged into the first rounding mark.
How brave are you feeling, Ben? Oh, it's the voice of Ian Jensen. They're flying too high. They're going to slop. They've stuffed it. This could be over. Capsize coming.
Oh, and a capsize for Great Britain in the finale. And so now it is 2 boats battling for the title. So Australia sailed off to the win and the top of the leaderboard with just 2 series to go. But there are still no certainty to make the final, with danger waiting this week for Tom Slingsby and team if they don't score, particularly if the winds are light. Yes, windy San Francisco should suit them, but they must not slip up now because 3 other teams can snatch their place in the season final. Just 1 point back is Mr. Consistency, Jimmy Spithill, in charge of the USA. Amazingly, their record shows not 1 series win all season. Instead, they've shrugged off early season bad luck.
Bang! Crash down. That looks bad to me.
To score 4 podium places, which have been gold, no more so than in Cadiz, when their 2nd place was within split seconds of being a disaster. Sharing 2nd place is Japan's Mr. Inconsistency, Nathan Outeridge. Will the Wind Whisperer get his favored light winds this week? He knows San Francisco will be windy, so he is experimenting here by replacing regular flight controller Francesco Bruni with now ex-grinder Leo Takahashi, who is replaced by Australian grinder Luke Payne, all aimed at increasing crew grinding power and overall weight. Then there is the 4-point gap to Great Britain, the most vulnerable of the top 4. A poor result this week, as long as the other 3 all perform, may well finish Ben Ainsley's season. It will be interesting to see his tactics here. Will he put aside his personal rivalry with Slingsby to concentrate instead on beating the USA or Japan across the line in every race? But there was one driver for whom team tactics was only part of the challenge.
It's been a question for a long time, who's the best sailor in the world? Equal boats, equal playing field.
Look at the speed!
I'm just as emotional as ever. And I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Sorry, guys.
And how much is that going to hurt Slingsby?
There's a bit of a narrative that Ben and I are pretty big rivals. Huge career accomplishment for me for people to actually question, am I better than the greatest sailor of all time? Quite an interesting storyline.
Capsize for Great Britain in the finale as Australia sails away.
I don't want to be the guy that makes a mistake and loses $1 million for our team.
The pressure clearly weighs heavy on Slingsby's mind. Back in Sydney in 2020, Great Britain's Ben Ainsley wiped the floor with the local heroes and current champions on their own waters.
I think it's always tough when you're sort of hometown favourite and won the league the previous season. Clearly they were the favourites to win that event.
He was so caught up in the event and trying to do the right things for the team as a CEO that I don't think he got to put the sailing hat on enough. The number of spectators and fans that came out for that event in 2020 was massive. It was a lot more than in season 1. And the amount of press that were now interested in it. I'd look over at Tom and he just had a queue of people wanting to speak to him. And so in the end, I think Tom said that, he got a bit embarrassed by Ben. They performed quite badly and Ben, really came in and made a statement. Looking back on that, Tom would handle that situation differently moving forward.
It doesn't come naturally for me being a leader. It is a bit awkward at times being the boss of these guys because we've grown up together. If we don't perform, we'll get replaced.
This is what makes the Sydney venue so special. Set in the heart of the city, it's long been a favorite with sailors. With Shark Island on the course, it's a spectator's dream as well. And when it came to the weather for the opening race, it couldn't be better. His focus was clear, the slate was clean. Tom Slingsby was ready to start the racing for real. Ready to turn the tables. Ready to fight back. But Ainsley was also in the zone. His crew were on a roll. And as the clock counted down, their strategy was abundantly clear. On time and at speed, but so too were the Spanish. Seconds later, Robertson's team were leading. Just. With the benefit of clear air and able to call their own shots, the Spanish stretched ahead of the pack. Behind them, the British and the Australians locked horns in a private battle that lasted the entire race. After slugging it out, Slingsby got ahead at the final gate, only to lose his advantage after splitting marks with the Brits and sailing into a hole. The Australians had dropped off their foils, and any hope of beating the Brits was evaporating fast. Ainsley was still in the breeze and scorching ahead, chasing down the Spanish. But there was too little runway left for any more overtaking on the shortened course. Robertson had executed the perfect race to take the first win of the event, their second win of the season, and their first away from home. In the second fleet race, it was Nathan Outridge's Japan team that got the jump at the start and sailed themselves into clean air. A good mark rounding at Gate 2 consolidated their advantage as they stretched out to the left-hand side of the course. Keen to catch Japan, the British tacked immediately after rounding Gate 2, but it was too soon and too slow, costing them crucial meters, forcing them back into the pack.
Oh, Ben Ainsley on the British crew, look at that, he's tried to pull off the JK tack, he's run right into the congestion, he's fallen off the foils. That was a rushed manoeuvre by the British and they're going to pay a big penalty for it.
The Spanish were in second and also in clear air, able to call their own shots. Meanwhile, the Americans, who had jumped the gun at the start, had pulled themselves back into third. And despite several attempts by the British to get past them, Spithill's team held on to the finish. After 2 races, Spain was ahead of the leaderboard, but the big shock was Australia, down in 6th. Risky for Slingsby, who was having technical issues with the daggerboard control system.
Yeah, I've got to do a better job of not letting it bother me and just deal with the problem at hand, but it's very hard because it's very sporadic issues, technical issues. It was working, then it wasn't working, then it was working, and yeah, I've just got to do a better job in general of not letting it bother me.
Slingsby might not have had the best of days so far, but Freddie Carr had been looking into the overall season data, which showed a different story.
I've been looking at the tactics so far this season. This is the sum of 25 races where all 8 boats are mixing it up. And who sailed the shortest distance? It's Australia. They have navigated the wind shifts beautifully throughout the season to sail the shortest distance. And they're just ahead of Great Britain by about 40 metres a race. Denmark are doing really well. If they sail faster, they could move up the leaderboard.
So how do teams get the data off the boats? And what do they do with it?
So we receive millions of data points via the Oracle Cloud. That data goes directly into performance feedback. You know, we get such a large amount of information from all the boats that we're continually reviewing that data just live and back at the base. So the data we're looking at while we're kind of live on the water, you can pretty much look at anything. There's sensors all over the boat, but the basics will be VMG. So just looking at the speed we're making up the course, going to the next mark. We're looking at just straight line speed, the angle we're sailing to the wind, and then you've got a whole host of other information, whether it's the wing setup, so you've got twist, the camber, how powerful the wing is, and everything that's going on under the water. And we'll review that data. And where we can make improvements, and then we'll try and put that into place. We can basically review live on the water what the other teams are doing. So we'll have templates set up to just see what we're doing. If we have a lineup against another team, we can see our setup, we can see the other boat setup, and that helps us tweak what we're doing on the boat to try and make gains all the time. So everyone's learning from each other and the performance is stepping up all the time. And that's a game changer.
Going into race 3, Spain and Great Britain were looking to continue their climb up the leaderboard. But the next few seconds turned this inside out.
19 seconds to go, I think. Outeridge and oh my lord! No, the British crew have crashed. They had no rights there, lost control of the boat. There's going to be disaster for the Japanese and the British there. That's unbelievable. You've got to be kidding me, says Nathan Outeridge, and I can quite believe that. We're on board at the back of the Japanese boat. Look at the British boat leap out of the water, and look at that. Oh my lord, the forces involved there, unbelievable. Watch the foil on the British boat, right-hand side of the screen. It's going to cut into the Japanese hull. Look at the load there, arms up, unbelievable.
Thankfully, no one was hurt. In the drama, the Spanish had shot off the line and were leading the charge. Having arrived at the Sydney event in 6th overall, Robertson was hell-bent on proving his team was better than that. So too was Slingsby. Yet time was running out to deliver a hometown win. And on leg 3, he made his move.
Careful with him. Yeah,
Tacking early on starboard put pressure on the Spanish, who were the giveaway boat. But it also got the Australians into the new breeze sooner. A perfectly executed move that Robertson could do nothing about. Meanwhile, Spithill was in a similar mood and took the Spanish on the next downwind leg.
coming up. Yep. Up 3, please. Up 3. Yours right.
Australia and USA took the first and second positions, and while Spain was still leading overall, the pair were now working their way back up the field. But Japan and Great Britain were already in their bases, dealing with the aftermath of the collision.
So yeah, just an update on the situation. So in Murray called, and if there's damage, it means a boat can't sail in the next race or the next day, and it's not their fault, somebody else caused the damage, then that team isn't able to sail until the point that the other boats are repaired and they can get back on the water. So that's the situation with the Japanese boat.
So just a quick update. Ben sent an email to me saying that he's obviously really sorry about what happened and he's offered anything we need to get us racing tomorrow.
We said, hands up, if there's anything we can do in terms of our kit that we can loan to the Japanese, be that hull or rig or any other component really, that we do that.
It's really kind of him. He doesn't actually have to do that as per the rules, but he said if we can get you on the water racing, we'll do what we can.
But it obviously means you're out tomorrow and effectively out of the running for the season, which is a bit of a shocker.
It looks like we'll be racing tomorrow, which is awesome. If anyone's checked the points, we're actually not doing too bad, all things considered.
So massively frustrating, but the trick in these situations, so they say, is to keep your chin up and try and learn from it.
Sorry, mate. Oh, mate. That's right. That happens, dude. I'm sorry, mate.
I got your email.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it. Yeah. What do you reckon's the best way to sort it out, though? Is it?
Well, you just, I don't know, tell us what you need.
Maybe a hull?
Well, yeah, you need a hull.
So on the back of the collision we had in the start of race 3, first was make sure everyone was okay, and then trying to get both boats back to the dock and assess the damage. Well, I guess it was pretty obvious. So first sight of the Japanese boat with the starboard bow being cut off. It's going to be very hard for them to sail tomorrow, and that proved to be the case. We got the boats back to the dock. In that instance, if you're the boat that caused the collision, which we did, you can't race either. And given that we can't sail, really the right thing is to try and help the Japanese get out on the water tomorrow. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so Ben sent an email to me kindly offering, well, firstly apologising for the incident and, saying how nice, how amazing it was that no one was injured out of that. And he's kindly offered basically anything he can give us to get us on the water tomorrow, which is, it's really sportsmanlike of him to do that. He doesn't have to do that, but he said, look, we've put you out of today's race and we'd love to get you on the water tomorrow. We've come up with a plan where we're going to use Ben's platform tomorrow and our wing and sails. So we're just going through the process now of trying to assess what other damage is on Ben's boat. Hopefully it's all working fine and we'll make the start line. And ultimately for us, every event you want to race as much as you can. So, I'm really thankful that Ben has, helped us out with that.
We'll learn from it. Everyone will bounce back. Like I said, the most important thing, no one was hurt. We can repair the boats, come back out, get back into the next event in San Francisco and come back strong.
The breeze was up, the Whitecaps were out, and the crowds had arrived once again, eager to find out what Day 2 held in store. The overall standings had been shaken up top and bottom. Spain was in the lead, while 5 points further back, it was Australia and the USA, and then Denmark in fourth. Japan was back on the water, but facing a challenging day. If they were to keep their hopes of getting to the season final in San Francisco, they needed to get to the final race today. Meanwhile, the road to victory in Sydney now involved 2 fleet races, ahead of the winner-takes-all final between the top 3 teams.
So I guess it was quite a good day on the water for us. We got a 1, 2, 3, so that's kind of what you want to be doing in this fleet. It's not easy to do, but we managed to get off the start line in great shape in every race, and it's a lot easier when you're around Mark 1 and the top 3 position and you sort of stretch away from everyone else.
Obviously a day of action yesterday. We were in overtake mode all day, struggled to get off the start line, but sailed the boat incredibly well. So, no, look, we're happy to walk away, in second position after day 1, but it's still all to play for out there today. Top end conditions, so you got to survive those first 2 races.
Oh, look, we're in the hunt heading into today, and we've got our conditions. 18, 20 knot sea breeze here on Sydney Harbour. If I could write down perfect conditions, which I would like to think I could do well in and our team could do well in, it would probably be what we've got today. So there's no excuses on that end. It's just going to be up to us to execute, and I feel we can do it.
But could they? New Zealand were the first and fastest over the line.
What a start by the Kiwi crew! 88 kilometres an hour, unbelievable speed.
The Japanese wing on the British hulls was in hot pursuit. Outeridge and his crew were back in the game. The breeze was gusting over 40 kilometers per hour. Boat speeds were double. The race to gate 2 was full on. The Kiwis and Japanese rounded quickly, but there was congestion behind, where the Australians were buried in 6th and the Spanish last.
The back of the fleet's bunching up here, and it's the Spanish in last place at the moment. That is not good for Phil Robertson and his Spanish crew.
But whether at the front or the back, there were heart-stopping moments for all as the conditions pushed crews and boats to the limit. In the closing seconds, the Kiwis misjudged the final mark, opening the door to Japan, and then gained a penalty in the process just meters from the finish.
New Zealand must keep clear. Oh, there's going to be a protest there. There's going to be a protest on that one.
Penalty New Zealand relative Japan. Penalty New Zealand relative
So while
Japan.
Burling crossed the line first, it was Outeridge that got the win. A 6th place had eroded the Spanish margin. The USA was still in the running for the 3-boat final, but the home team was living dangerously, especially with Japan's new blistering pace. Race 5 would be crucial.
Just 8 seconds to go. They're all very close to the line here. Who's going to get the boat up to speed the quickest? Watch for the line to go wide. It's all clear.
Fired with success, Japan stole the lead from the start. By gate 2, they had pulled out a 10-second lead over the Kiwis. The Americans were in 5th, and the Australians back in 6th.
Look, the Australians, 20 kilometres an hour, and they're in the water. This could be disaster for Tom Slingsby at the moment, and Japanese stretch away.
At this stage, Slingsby would not make it to the final, and Japan would be in. From here, Outeridge and his crew were never seriously challenged and sailed a flawless race. But perfection was still not enough. The Australians had pulled up to 2nd.
This could be a point change here as well. This is going to tighten things up. Here comes Sehested from nowhere, pushing the Spanish back, but I don't think it's enough still. It's going to be just not enough. The Spanish will make the final, but my word, what a move by Sehested from nowhere.
A 4th for Jimmy Spithill meant that the Americans would also bag their place in the 3-boat decider. Japan had missed out by a single point. When it came to the perfect start, the Americans delivered split-second timing, but the Australians were faster.
Jimmy Spithill on board the USA, perfection, but it's going to be Tom Slingsby at a faster angle that I think can get round him before Mark 1.
In order to turn down across the American bows, Slingsby had to be sure he was in front. Somehow, the Australians had to be faster, forcing Jason Waterhouse to fly the F-50 as high as he dared. Their lead position had also been possible thanks to a critical judgment call by Nina Curtis at Mark 1, confirming when the overlap was broken, allowing Slingsby to dive down across the Americans. Spithill tried to match the Australian pace, but Slingsby and crew were on fire. And after 3 laps, the home team had delivered an incredible race and an impressive comeback.
Stand up Australia, look at that on Shark Island. There's some very, very happy Australians there.
The pressure on Slingsby had been intense, but his team had done it. At last, the home title was in the bag. Redemption was complete. The Americans had missed out on a win once again, while the Spanish had sailed a consistent set of races to deliver their best performance of the season, a third. Seconds after Australian legend John Bertrand presented the trophy, the corks popped and the celebrations began as a season's stress and pressure was released. So now, with all eyes on the ultimate prize, Australia, USA, and Japan lead the charge to San Francisco for the final event of SailGP Season 2 and the $1 million race.
It was a tough day. We made it hard for ourselves. There's times there where I was thinking we might not make the final race, and then we scraped into the final race, and then we managed to just sail a perfect race, really. It's crazy. You got so much noise on the boat. The foils are whistling, there's so much wind around, and you've got earphones in, but you can still hear the crowd, so that's pretty awesome. The guys sailed so well, and I've just got so much trust in my team that when we've got a lot of pressure on and we've got to perform, I just know they're going to have my back, and we're going to pull it out somehow. But yeah, look, this format, it all comes down to the last race. Winning the season and leading going into San Fran's nice, but none of it matters unless we perform in that last race, last 15-minute race in San Francisco. Your whole season can come undone in that time, so we just got to work hard and then try to nail that race like we did today.
7 down, 1 to go. The fastest boats, the closest action, the biggest crowds, and the world's best sailors. SailGP Season 2 had already been spectacular. San Francisco is next in March, with the promise of a fitting climax to an already electrifying season.